Invisible work, what is it and how do we make it visible? We're going to backtrack to a previous video that I made for recent college grads and young professionals moving in with their parents. One of the hardest parts of moving in with your parents is to integrate into your family in a way that you don't lose your independence and autonomy. This video builds on a tip I shared in that video around why it's important to make your invisible work visible to your parents so that they're not putting unnecessary pressure while you're living with them. Invisible work is quite simple. It is all the work you do to advance your career or a personal goal, but that doesn't get recognized. I want you to keep in mind that knowledge work tends to be quiet, sedentary, and on the computer or on a smart device, your phone, your tablet, your computer. And this is very important for those of you who are first in your families to go to college, who are the first to have a professional degree, whose parents maybe did more labor-intensive jobs, physical jobs. This kind of work may be a little hard for them to understand. The term invisible work comes from sociologist Arlene Daniels. She defines invisible work as all the unpaid labor that people do that goes unnoticed and it's unappreciated. The concept has been applied to all aspects of our lives. It's applied to relationships, it's applied to careers. We're going to apply this concept to your work as a young professional living at home. Why should you care about invisible work and whether or not your parents see it? If you're living with your parents for short term or long term, eventually you'll get a level of uneasiness. Your parents directly or indirectly are starting to worry about your future, your career goals, and where you're going. Some of your parents are going to be happy to have you living with them long term. And some of you will have parents who want to make sure that you are making progress in your career. And that may include moving out, finding a job if you don't have one yet, and making advancements. And so invisible labor is the work that you're doing at home, but that your parents don't see. If your parents don't see you doing a lot of the work that you need to advance your career or advance a personal goal, they are going to start to get worried. And the biggest fear that a parent has is to see their child stalled. They start bringing in the pressure. Often it's unnecessary pressure. And it all comes down to the fact that they don't understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and then what actions you're taking, especially if you are the first in your family to hold a professional degree. And since most of the work that you do is either on the computer, on your smartphone, or on a tablet, it is easy for your parents to assume that you're not using your professional tools for career goals. Our relationship with tools that used to be for work has changed. Now our tools transitions to be also tools of play. So you can be on social media having fun. You can be on your computer watching videos and shows. There's just so many ways to have fun with the current tools that we use for our jobs. So what can you do? How do you make the invisible work you're doing at home visible to your parents? I have 12 tips. They're pretty simple and easy. Some of them may be a little harder to implement if you don't have a strong relationship with your parents, so you can do more of the subtle tips, but all of them are quite easy, and really it's just putting it out there, telling everybody in your home that you're working. Sometimes you have to go deeper, and sometimes people just knowing that you're working is good enough. Tip 1, share your completed action plan with your family, your parents. I created a video around how to move in with your parents without losing your independence and autonomy. It has linked an action plan. And the goal would be that you fill out the action plan before you move in with your parents so that you have made very clear agreements around how you're going to spend your time, how you're going to contribute to the household, and what is it going to be like to have you back in their home. By sharing the action plan with your parents, they will be able to see clearly family that you have a goal and a purpose that you're going to be working towards while you live with them. It really allows you to negotiate any expectations that they have. It allows you to ask for assistance or resources or help, and sets up a really good foundation for you to have future discussions about your career goals or personal goals. Tip 2, share your plans and your schedule with your family verbally. That may be a little less intimidating than giving them a complete document. If it's easier for you to share on a weekly basis what your plans are for the week, you can do that as well. Tip 3 is to use a weekly public schedule or calendar that you post somewhere that's public in your home. It could be in your room if your door is open. It could be in the living room, in the kitchen, somewhere public where people are able to see what your schedule look like. Using a public planner or schedule is a subtle way to tell your family how busy you're going to be and what you're going to be doing for the week, if having direct conversations with them is a little bit hard. It also helps you get into alignment with your parents if they have their own plans, and if there's other people in the house that have plans and you're expected to engage in family outings. It really gives them some guidance around when you're busy. Tip 4 is for the night owls. If you are a night owl and you are the most productive at night, and so you spend most of your day either working or socializing, because your best work times are at night, you need to communicate that with your parents. And you can be direct and saying, hey, mom, dad, you're going to probably see me or hear me at night working, because that's my most productive time. If you are unable to do that, then you can do it in a more subtle way the next day in the morning, where you can share what you've accomplished. Last night, I finished my resume. Last night, I finished a work application. Share just a little bit about the work that you did overnight while everybody else was sleeping, so that they don't automatically assume that you're using your computer for fun, but that you are using it for your productivity and moving forward your career or personal milestones. Tip 5 is to work in a public space in your home, a common area, the living room, the kitchen, the dining room. By working in a public space, there's the opportunity for them to ask you questions like, what are you doing? Then you can, offer a response. I'm working on this project. It gives your parents or the people who live with you the opportunity to ask you questions. It doesn't mean that you have to stay there, but if you start work there and then you move into a more closed off location, then the transition is easier. You can say, hey, I'm going to get on a few calls. I'm going to go to my room. If you need me, send me a text. You're starting in a public space and moving into a private space. Tip 6 is to celebrate your completed tasks, milestones, goals publicly while you're home. So it could be as simple as saying, yes, I'm done, or, oh, I am so done for the day, in front of your family. If there are kids around, you can celebrate with them. You can give a high five to anybody who's around. If you have a really good relationship with your parents, you can just say, hey, I'm done working. Do you want to do something this evening? Public celebrations are really simple. They don't have to be big and drawn out. Tip 7 is to tell others. Closely related to a public celebration, but instead of talking directly to your parents, if your communication is not solid enough, you can call a friend and let them know that you've accomplished or worked through a challenge. And that's a subtle way to share with the people in your home that you've been working on something. Tip 8 is very similar to Tip 7, but focuses on the use of social media. So if you, either because your family is really busy, everybody's doing a lot of different things, but they are connected on social media, if you know which social media profiles your parents use regularly, you can share updates there. You're sharing it for the sole intention that they see the update, that you're sharing what you're doing. I know that these tips may sound silly for people who have really good relationships with their parents, but you have a lot of people who do not. They have tenuous relationships with parents, so communicating with them is hard. You can use these strategies to consistently tell them and name what you're doing and why you're doing it. Update Facebook if that's what they're on, and it's really simple, like, I'm gonna enjoy a cup of coffee. I just finished working on my resume. or I'm going to make some coffee and watch this training on coding. The secondary benefit of tip A is that if you have parents who are not necessarily supportive, but you need other people besides your parents to know that you are, doing work while you're there. Sometimes you have young professionals who live with parents who tell different stories, and they're not always in the most positive light. So if you will find yourself in this situation, you are able to control your story and your narrative by sharing on social media. So friends, cousins, and other people in your network see that you are being productive, that you are working towards personal goals and career goals or educational goals. Tip 9 is to create a simple do not disturb sign or in a meeting sign that you can print and put on a door, put in a freestanding clipboard so people around you know that you're busy and to not disturb you. Tip 10 is a 2-action tip. You tell your parents what you're doing and then offer to do something else. So something simple like, hey, I am done prepping for my interviews this week. Do you need me to do something this evening? Or, hey, I'm done working on my work project. Do you need me to clean the dishes or go to the grocery store? So you're leading with what you've done and then offering to do something for them. This may be a very appreciated tip for those of you who have parents who grew up doing labor-intensive jobs and who see movement and action taking as labor. So if you could tell them what you've finished and then ask them what you can do for them is a good way to connect with them on work. For one, they'll be informed about what you were working on, even though it didn't seem active, and then you're offering your time and energy to help them out in some other way. Tip 11 is to ask them for their advice or to problem solve with you. It is an easy way to get them engaged in your work, especially if you have a good relationship with your parents. They do not need to be experts in your field. You just need to share enough so that they understand what your work product is and the type of feedback that you want from them. I do this often with my son. He's in his 20s. The work that I do is not interesting to him, and he tells me, but I do tell him, hey, I'm going to read this to you. Can you tell me how it sounds to you? Do you understand what I'm reading to you? Is there something that disrupted the flow in this article? I'm asking for very specific feedback. When I do this with my mother, I actually share what the project is and then the different tasks that I'm doing. Sometimes she has something to say, but most of the time she's like, wow, that's really hard. It really gives her the opportunity to understand that this sedentary work that I do is much more complicated than what she perceives it to be because she sees me sitting all day. Tip 12 is to create a running list of accomplishments and make it somewhat public. It's maybe a chart on your wall where you write down things accomplished while you're there. It can have both personal and career goals. If you have the action plan, you can print it out, make it a public thing. That way, if your parents see something, they can see that you're keeping track of the stuff that you're accomplishing. What is the goal of doing all of these things? The goal of using these strategies is to make the invisible work that you're doing visible to them, especially if it's not something that they truly understand, especially if you work in a very niche field where it's just, a black hole. We're making the invisible work that you do visible for them in ways they would understand. 2, you're giving them language about your field, around the work that you do. So if they got stopped at the grocery store and somebody said, hey, how is Rosamaria doing? She would be able to say, she's doing well. She's rebuilding her networks here. She is trying to figure out if grad school is a better option or if working is a better option. So she's reaching out to professors of the different departments that she wants to be admitted to, or she's doing online trainings to prepare for interviews. You want them to understand what you're doing. And so the only way that they're going to know and have the language is by sharing what you're doing. Another outcome that these tips offer young professionals who have complicated relationships with your parents is that it allows you to control your own narrative. It allows you to tell a different story, to publicly share to other people that there's a different vision of the world. It allows you to control the narrative in a different way, especially if you're using social media, you're using text messaging, you're using public space in your home. You're telling the story, and it doesn't have to be verbal, but being able to share with others and telling them what you're doing, so that if it's in opposition of what your parents are sharing, they at least know that there is a misalignment in the storytelling that's happening. I'd love to hear about the ways that you're making this invisible work visible. A quick reminder to grab the action plan. It'll be linked down below. Also, on Saturdays, I have a free workshops where I offer coaching for folks. Spaces are limited. Go and sign up for one of the Saturday sessions.